Hey Spurs, I'm going to walk you through looking at some word problems dealing with fractions and comparing fractions. We're first going to look at this one here where you're dealing with fractions that have the same denominator, and then we'll look at fractions where the bottom number is different. Okay, so this one says the number lines model two different fractions. Here's one fraction and here's the other one. Which comparison of these fractions is true? So I'm going to count the parts so I can figure out what my denominator is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I know my bottom number is going to be 8. Okay? And this one is the same, so it's also 8. Okay? I'm going to count this as 1, 2, so I know that one is 2 eighths. And this bottom one here is 1, so I know it's 1 eighth. Okay? Now I have to figure out which of these symbols is most appropriate for it. Okay? Now, looking at this, okay, so I know that that's 2 eighths and that's 1 eighth. Now I'm going to look at these answer choices and see which one doesn't make sense, because there's always going to be an answer that for sure doesn't make any sense. What I notice is odd about these answer choices is this F says a half is greater than 1 over 1. A 1 over 1 is the same as 1 whole. First of all, a half is definitely not larger than a whole. But the thing is, they have fractions here in parts, so we are not even dealing with. So I know that this is not a good answer choice. Okay. Now, also, 1 eighth is not the same as 2 eighths. As I can see here, they're not the same. So I know that's not right. So this leaves me with 2 eighths is greater than 1 eighth. That means this number line shows that this is greater than this one. And J is telling me that 2 eighths is less than 1 eighth. Well, I know this is not right, and clearly this is the correct one. Okay, so my 2 eighths is greater than 1 eighth. Now let me take a look when I'm dealing with fractions that have the different denominators, meaning that they're not split up the same. Okay, so Daniel shaded these two number lines to model two different fractions. I notice that this one is split up into 1, 2, 3 parts. So my denominator for this one is going to be a 3 at the bottom. And I notice that this one part is shaded, so it's 1/3 that's shaded. Okay. This one is split up into 1, 2 parts. So my denominator is 2. And one part of the 2 is shaded, so it's, oops. I'm not sure. It's supposed to be a 2. Okay. All right. So I have a 1/3 and then a half, and I'm trying to figure out the symbol that would go in the middle. Now, let me cross out my answers that don't make any sense. This one, the 1/3 equals a half. I can know just by looking at that they're not the same. Okay. I can tell by looking at this that this has more shaded than this one. So I know that a half is going to be greater than 1/3. Okay, so let's see, 1/3 is greater than a half. And so 1/3 is not bigger than 1/2, so that one's not right. This one says 1/3 is less than a half. And this one says that 2/3 is less than 1/2. We're not dealing with 2/3, so we're going to cross this one out. And that one's the correct one. Okay? So, sorry. So I know that C is my correct answer choice. Okay? Now, the rule of thumb is when you're dealing with fractions, the larger the bottom number is, the smaller the piece. Okay, so if you're comparing fractions where the bottom number is not, they're different, the one with the smaller denominator is going to be the larger one. Okay, it sounds kind of reverse, but if you think about it, a fraction is how many pieces you're splitting a whole into. So if you're splitting something into halves, that's going to be a lot bigger. Those sizes will be bigger than if you split it into thirds. So if I had a pizza and I split that in half and then I had another pizza and I split that into thirds, my pizza pieces for my half is going to be a lot bigger than my pizza pieces for a third. Okay, so the rule of thumb, the larger your denominator is, the smaller the piece. So you'll know if you're comparing fractions where the denominator is not the same, I want you to look at which denominator is smaller, and usually the smaller denominator will be larger. But then you also have to look at the top part. Okay, so that doesn't work every time, but it's a rule of thumb. All right, guys, I hope that helps you with your performance task. That's due Thursday this week, not on Friday, and all of your work is due Thursday. All right, guys, I hope this helps you. Let me know if you have any questions.